Well, hello and welcome everyone to the 6th Annual EMS Leadership Summit. My name is Robbie McHugh.
And I'm Lisa Dritzy, and I am excited. If you can't tell, oh my God, I am so excited for this kickoff event, for the summit we have lined up this week. Oh my God, I'm so excited.
We're very happy to be with you. We're happy to be simulcasting across the EMS One Facebook page, the Fire Rescue TV network, the High Performance EMS brand, as well as the EMS Leadership Academy brand. So I think all in all, we've got about a total simulcast reach of about 500,000 Facebook followers, not to mention LinkedIn. And I will tell you, we have a packed green room. We've got some of the best and the brightest speakers that we're featuring this week. Lisa, all in all, I think I counted over 40 different speakers in 30 different sessions. We have international panels. We have been taking people's Q&A. So would love to see in the comments, if wherever you're joining in from, whether it's LinkedIn, YouTube live stream, any of the Facebook pages, give us a comment. Let us know where you're watching from. In the past, we've had a reach of over 44 different countries, and I think this will put us up to about 20,000 plus registrants in the last 6 years. So pretty exciting night to kick this 6th EMS Leadership Summit off.
I can't stop smiling. I'm so excited. We have a larger, not only a larger audience that we're streaming to, but we already have surpassed the number of registrants from last year, and we haven't even started yet. So it is amazing, amazing. And talk about a lineup in the green room tonight. Some really new folks and some folks who are returning from previous summits. And I'm just excited.
Got
If you
folks
couldn't
joining in
tell.
from Oklahoma. We've got Scott Moore, one of our great returning speakers. Hey, Scott from Boston, Fire Rescue TV, and Martin tuning in from Miami, Amanda in Atlanta. Again, just keep putting in where you're watching from. If you can share this live feed as well, it would help broaden the reach, because we've got a lot of information to share. And we've got a couple speakers that we're going to bring out here in just a moment.
And just to be clear, this EMS Leadership Summit is a free event where, as Robbie said, we have over 30 presentations, 2 panels. We have an amazing, actually 3 panels, now that I think about it. We just have an amazing lineup of speakers. And if you have any desire to up-level your leadership capacity, the people on your team are interested in, expanding their leadership capacity. I mean, who doesn't want to learn something? If you took away one thing from this lineup of amazing speakers, it would be worth your time and energy. It's completely free. You can sign up at emsleadershipsummit.com and get your free ticket. And every day you'll get an email telling you exactly what link to click on and how to access your day-long presentations. And the cool thing is that they're available for 24 hours. So you may not be able to watch them from 9 to 5 or 10 to 6 or whatever, but you have 24 hours to watch the presentations. And I think every day we have at least 6 that are going out, and so plenty of opportunity to watch those 6. And then the other option, if you want lifetime access, there is a opportunity for an all access pass, which all it takes is a small fee. And you not only get lifetime access to all the presentations, you get an audio version as well. So if you want to listen in your car or, while you're out for a walk or something, you don't have to be in front of a screen. You can listen to them. And then we have, thank you, NEMSMA. We have a 24 credits you can get continuing ed credits through NEMSMA if you're interested in that, with only with lifetime access, only with the all access pass.
Well, great. Let's share a little bit quickly about how the summit's going to work. You shared where people can register at emsleadershipsummit.com. Folks, you want to be able to download your EMS Leadership Playbook that we've put together. Over 20 pages of exclusive resources you're not going to find anywhere else, written by some of our great speakers, as well as our speaker schedule. So you can access that PDF at emsleadershipsummit.com/playbook, and it will automatically email you a copy of that PDF. That PDF is right here, which includes the complete lineup of this week's sessions, They all start tomorrow from day number 1, starting at 8 a.m.
Awesome. So why don't we bring a couple people on and before we dive into more details about the summit itself, I'd love to have a couple of our speakers come on and join us, and let's see who's here.
Well, welcome, Dr. Victoria Reinhartz, Executive Director of NAMI HP. It's great to have you.
Hello, guys. I've been so
Hi.
excited for tonight. Thanks for having me on.
It's great to have you, and thank you for your sponsorship as well. We couldn't do this without our sponsors, and your organization has come back and sponsored us again this year, and we're just so grateful. I think it would be good to shout out to a couple of our other sponsors, and then Victoria, I'll turn it over to you to share whatever you'd like to share about being one of our presenters. But we want to thank Ninth Brain, again, a returning sponsor, so grateful for their partnership. Phase International, formerly known as Binderlift, but Phase stands for Patient Handling and Safety Experts. Thank you so much to Rick Binder for his continued partnership. We have NEMSMA as a partner this year for the first time, and not only are they supporting us by having the continuing ed credits, but also being one of our strategic partners. We have Revenue EMS and Image Trend, which we'll talk more about, but both of those are new sponsors this year, and we really want to give them a shout out. And then our media sponsors, EMS One and Fire Rescue TV. So we'll say more about them as we move on tonight, but I didn't want to step over how important our sponsors are.
And I love that. I think that's great. From NAMI HP's standpoint, this is now a couple years that we've come on with you guys and support. And, it's not surprising to see a lot of those additional sponsors. You guys are, from a leadership perspective, so at the forefront for our entire industry of concepts like innovation and stepping outside your comfort zone and figuring out more effective ways to lead our teams, to advance the industry. And seeing these names on here for who your sponsors and partners are, it's certainly not surprising to see these entities and these companies and NEMSMA, et cetera, that are on that list. So, NAMI HP is all about that. We're all about how do we further the industry and embrace those concepts. And so it certainly is a pleasure for us to have a presence and support of you guys too.
And I'm looking forward to your presentation this year. I think it's throwing out the 5-year plan or something like that, which I love.
Burning the 10-year plan.
Yeah, burning the 10-year plan. We really dug in there. And I think that for anybody that's looking at that, there's so much proactive planning in the realm of EMS to prepare as much as we can for the unexpected. A lot of us lock in budgets and initiatives far in advance of when we would deploy resources, et cetera. And the concept here of burning the 10-year plan is really centered around, digging in and determining what is it that I don't know, and then adapting accordingly based on what I'm starting to learn and the newest evidence that's coming. And so that's the concept there, is that sometimes we get too scripted down the path of this is what the plan was, and we have new opportunities, new information that really should push us to say, I'm getting a feeling here that there's something else that I need to be paying attention to. There's a shift in the industry. There's a shift in, who eligible partners are and opportunities. And sometimes you got to burn the 10-year plan and pivot and lean into what you don't know and start to, really begin to pursue new knowledge, new opportunities, et cetera. So that's kind of where it came from. And in MIH and community paramedicine, anybody in the audience here, I see some familiar names in the chat. That's certainly a concept that we embrace in the realm of mobile integrated health as well.
And Victoria, that's what I love about NAMI HP, always on the cutting edge of mobile medicine and healthcare and breaking down those silos. I love attending your MIH in-person summits. Every time I go, taken something away. I've actually applied it, and we've actually had some really big results, both in the other organization that I am able to work in, and I just love meeting those kind of movers and shakers. Another mover and shaker here, we've got two that we're going to bring on, both Rob Lawrence and Alexia Jobson, that are going to join us. So I'm going to add those two. Welcome, Rob. Welcome, Alexia.
Great to have you here. Great to see everybody.
And we've got Rob Lawrence, international Rob Lawrence, who is always coast to coast, wearing his EMS one-stop hat, or his California Ambulance Association hat. And we had the opportunity, Rob and Alexia, to talk about the power of associations. We just talked about NAMI HP, but you've got some really great associations between AIM High, between the American Ambulance Association, and then your state level association. So thank you for coming back, and you and Mark Tenia, you both and Mark Tenia, for arranging our comms panel. We so appreciate your perspective.
We are so excited to be part of this again. I know that Rob and Mark share my enthusiasm for spreading information about public relations and how agencies of all sizes and resources can really work to raise the profile of EMS through, audience engagement, relationship building, news and social media engagement. And we love the opportunity to kind of geek out on this and share information, and also collect ideas from our colleagues around the country. So,
Rob, you're muted. We all said it at once.
You all said it at once. There we go. Mute off. And we all talk about national associations. Years ago, you'd have said we were just an alphabet soup of EMS associations. As you know, Robbie and Lisa, I've just come back from EMS on the Hill, where whilst it was the National Association of EMTs that were proposing the bills, there was support from every national association and representation from every national association there. And of course, the good news is these days is we're hunting as a pack legislatively, and that is the power of all the associations working together. So that's a good thing. But of course, we have to communicate about it, which is where Mark, myself, and Alexia also come into the mixture.
Yeah, again, I so appreciate your perspective, and you're taking both the agencies, the high performance EMS agencies, between Richmond Ambulance Authority, between REMSA Health, Rob, between your great network of California Ambulance Association members, and just giving us a perspective of how people can leverage more education of their elected officials, more education of their, especially when it comes to budget season, and really keeping everybody on the same page. It's remarkable to see over the last couple of years how you've aligned, even just been tracking news and news stories in that news tracker, for the lack of a better word. And I feel like people are rowing in the same direction, and you're kind of beating the same drum.
I'll go first, Alexia. Yeah. I mean, the news tracker, as we call it, or as you call it, we've just passed 3,000 items of curated industry sort of news, and we are collecting issues, whether it's closures, whether it's recruiting, retention, etc. Why do we do that? And by the way, everybody that's watching, visit emsintel.com for that. It's because we've curated a collection of news items that we can pass on to national journalists, which we frequently do, news items that we can pass on to elected officials, which we frequently do. And if we're talking about, for example, recruiting or retention in one area, or indeed performance in one area, or anything operational, or the one that gets me on my soapbox, Robbie and Lisa, ambulances being stolen every 2 weeks, we've curated those things together to say this is a trend and it's occurring across the country, and here's where you can go to find. Now, of course, we love our friends at EMS One and our other trade publications, but of course what we're doing is taking it right back to the actual news source. So it's local news from the local market, which we can then pass on. So that's been a great success for AIM High and indeed the American Ambulance Association.
Exactly.
And I love how you're weaving in stories that help tell a message, that help us tell a message. Alexia, I think you do such a great job highlighting those stories in both REMSA and helping other people understand the power of leveraging the stories.
Thank you. It's obviously our passion to do that. And I agree with Rob, and he has given so much time and energy to that news tracker. It's incredibly helpful. I turn to it regularly to be able to find stories to share with our local elected officials, our board of directors, to again just kind of help draw the connections that while we may be experiencing challenges in our community, it's likely that those same challenges are happening across the country, and that we can kind of sing from the same song sheet as an entire profession. So and being able to help kind of craft those messages and work with agencies to put those messages forward. I'm excited about these kinds of events where we can make those connections and carry them forward so that we're really making the most impact as professionals, PR professionals, stand-in PR professionals, whatever the case may be. So we're excited that everyone is here to learn how to tell those important stories in their communities.
Well, folks, if you want to put it on your calendar, Rob, Alexia, and Mark Tenia are going to be featuring their session on day number 2 on April 16th. So be sure to tune in, mark your calendars. Final thoughts from Victoria. I know we briefly mentioned stories, and I think if you could share a little bit about what NAMI HP is doing in helping people highlight their stories and use that as a platform to explain more of what.
Yeah, I think that's a great segue. The philosophy, right, is that stories matter and data convinces, or vice versa, right? Data matters and stories convince. So depending on the flavor of how your local city council, your local stakeholders, the payer aspect of who our stakeholders in customer markets are, we need to be able to have both sides of that coin. You need the data that aligns with what the industry priorities are. And you really also have to pair that with stories from your community, from those individuals that are being impacted by the work that you're doing, not just in EMS, but MIH and community paramedicine across the realm of our industry here. And NAMI HP has worked incredibly hard to not only work alongside, our peer organizations here with those of us that are on tonight, Rob and Alexia, and the rest of our peers, a lot of them additional speakers that you guys have here this week. So NAMI has, really worked hard to align our efforts and complement to the rest of these organizations, but also help to set that national story. And we have put out some survey focused information to be able to collect that info for any teams across the country that are doing community paramedicine, community risk reduction, mobile integrated health, whatever it is that you call it. That's our focus at this time, is to really help to tell that national story, compile that data, and make sure that you have that resource and support from NAMI HP's standpoint. And I also just have to say, before I know I have to jump off pretty soon, and you've got a whole slew of people in the green screen area here, but I will say, Rob, it's nice to see you not on an escalator. I feel like I haven't done 5 seconds.
Remember, every Wednesday, a new edition of On the Escalator with Drops. So thank you for that plug, Victoria. Appreciate that.
Well, thank you all so much for being here, and for not just tonight, but for your sharing your expertise with our audience over the next 5 days. And of course, you'll be invited back for the at the end of the day of your presentation. We host a daily debrief every single night with the speakers from that day to answer questions from the audience. So hopefully you'll be able to join us on those evenings. But thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, folks. And as we say goodbye to our first group and lineup of speakers, we have 2 more speakers that are coming up next. And we just encourage people, if you haven't already downloaded the playbook, you'll have your full conference schedule for the rest of the week where you can visit those sessions. And when in doubt, check out our virtual exhibitor hall, because all of our sessions for free access and both paid access will be visible right here from a desktop. I would just go here and click on any of these sessions. And again, starting tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern, free pass holders can view all of the sessions for our day 1 lineup.
That's great. So let's bring on Lillian Bonsignor, retired EMS chief from FDNY. So let's have
welcome,
Lillian. Come back again this year. Yay. And Mick Gunderson's in the house. We got to bring Mick in.
Welcome,
Share
Mick.
some of
Hey, guys.
also his expertise. It's so great to have you, and thank you for being here to celebrate our kickoff of the EMS Leadership Summit. Hard to believe it's our 6th one. We were reminiscing a couple days ago, Robbie and I, about how the first live kickoff we did, we had one speaker on a bicycle. Remember Chris Sobolero? He was so awesome, but he wanted to be with us, but he was on a bicycle somewhere. And now how far we've come. So welcome.
Well, Chris is always peddling something.
Well, we miss him this year. He wasn't able to join us this year in the summit, but sent his love and support for sure. So Lillian, anything you would like to share with us about your presentation coming up, or anything at all about being a part of the summit again this year?
Well, again, I'm super excited and so happy for you guys. You've done such an extraordinary job. I think this might be the single most popular point of congregation for all who love EMS. So congratulations on your numbers. It's really an amazing job that you're doing, and a place where we can all come and have raw conversation and learn a little something about the profession and the industry that we love. So I'm so happy to be here.
And you're talking about such an important topic, the whole idea of career growth and building a pathway for yourself, but also as an organization. It's such an important conversation that we're having.
Yeah, I do hope that I actually hit some of those points. I know we had a really wonderful conversation about it, and there's no one solution, right? So when we talk about things like building a career path for people within EMS, you can't talk about that without talking about recruitment and retention and money and all the other things that come with the struggles that EMS is facing right now. So I'm looking forward to seeing you all at my presentation.
That it was wonderful. I'm not just saying that because I got to interview you either, but
well,
it was
wonderful about it. I was so happy to be there with you and have that conversation. So looking forward to it. It's amazing. It's been 6 years already.
It really is. And really it's amazing just this last 5 years, what feels like the blip time-wise. Everybody talks about pre-pandemic, during the pandemic. And Lillian, you took office as chief of one of the busiest EMS systems in the United States during the highest point of COVID. I mean, so if there's anyone that's got some stories about career pressures, the recruitment and retention crisis happening, what you had to, and your team had to endure and deal with, and the opportunity of what people are saying that they want more of career pathways and trying to retain people.
Yeah, I feel like I was bamboozled a little there. I took that position as the chief of EMS operations in 2019. It was May of 2019, and it wasn't very long before the biggest thing we've ever seen comes crashing through New York City. And, it wasn't easy. And I'm not here certainly to tell anybody that anything that we're talking about is easy. A lot of these things are very difficult and very hard to talk about, but we have to do it. And if you have a passion for leadership, you have to challenge yourself to overcome the most difficult obstacles. And I will say 2 things, and then I know Mick wants to jump in there. One thing is that, I was very fortunate. Nothing that I did, although I was in that position to lead the largest EMS system in the country, nothing I did was alone. This took an incredible team of people who got together and really just, dug in until this thing, the worst of it anyway, was over. And then we can take a breath. But even when we were taking a breath, things were pretty difficult. And one of the things that we've always, at least for me, have always kind of leaned on is EMS standing for elevate, motivate, and support. And, anytime I found myself going in a different direction, that was a place I could come back to and say, okay, which one of these 3 am I operating in right now? So, it helped keep me solid. It helped give everybody a place to land, especially when things got a little confusing and a little challenging.
Yeah.
Well, you're amazing. That's all I'm saying. You are amazing. And I love that you acknowledge your team and the support you received. And I want to acknowledge you.
Thank you.
You did an amazing job. You really did.
much. Happy to be here with you.
And Mick, your conversation, the topic we talked about was using quality as your political advantage, right? Developing those resources, not only the stories but the numbers that are going to match up and help when it comes to resource allocation, when it comes to making a point for quality as a political advantage. Is that correct?
Yeah, and Lil, I know you have no experience having trying to defend your budget and fight for resources and issues of internal competitive advantage as well as external competitive advantage, or some of the things we talked about, Robbie. But
Yeah.
using quality as the basis for some of those conversations, rather than the usual, as I like to refer to it, the quality police model, which I think is still a little bit too common in our industry.
Absolutely. And I remember last year when we met and you were talking about, I haven't seen your presentation yet this year, but I will. But last year I was so inspired by what you talked, the way you talked about quality is so different than I've ever heard in any industry. And, I get the opportunity to work in a lot of different industries, but for sure, nothing I'd ever heard in EMS before. And the way you talk about it as a political advantage, but also it can also, I don't know how to say it correctly, I'm sorry, but it was about even as a way to create a career path using quality. That's what we talked about last year, right? Like having specializations or having teams of people get involved in the whole quality idea, as opposed to just one person who's got that hat on.
Yeah, all these things, are very interconnected. We're trying to do recruitment and retention. We want to create career paths, and quality can be a mechanism to create some of those career paths. What we were talking about last year was this idea of EMS clinical specialists and clinical specialty teams, not unlike at hospitals where they'll have a stroke team and a trauma team or a STEMI team, and clinical nurse specialists in those disciplines. So we talked about what that looked like for in EMS, but where that kind of ties into this year's presentation about the political capital and competitive advantage is having some great stories to tell and data to back it up, rather than just, you make a major change in your system design or your protocols, et cetera. That should be looked at as a quality improvement project using the methodologies of improvement science and getting good sound data to prove that you made a difference, you moved the needle, and having the ability to know if the needle went the wrong direction, that you may need to change course and take a different approach, test a new idea, test it as a hypothesis using, again, the tools of improvement science, and putting stuff out to your local elected officials, your community, social media channels, to start building up some organizational reputation and political capital for those times when you have to defend your budget, ask for resources, competing for employees, competing for managers, for that matter.
Absolutely. And maybe both of you, do you have any stories that you could share about an example of whether it's using stories in the good work that our people are doing every day in and out that goes completely unrecognized? Any stories or memories you have of successes, or even just what could have been done a little bit better when it comes to making those decisions? Because it's a challenge for leaders that all have to defend their budgets, that all have to, every other year, it seems like, go down to work with your elected officials and tell them why there is even an EMS system worthy of investing in, why we spend money. And by the way, in most places, partially subsidized, and unlike other departments in those municipalities that are not even subsidized. Like we have the distinct advantage and disadvantage of most departments of being able to bill insurance revenue. And yet I think a lot of political leaders tend to over rely on that opportunity, when this is a system worthy of investing. Like, our people really can make a difference on people's worst day.
Lil, anything come to mind?
I mean, there's plenty to talk about there. You know, I will say that when we're able to bill insurance doesn't mean that we're making anything back that's going to cover the services that we provide. And I think a lot of people get caught up on that, thinking that, you know, because we can bill, we don't need the support. And that is so not the case. I would tell you too, just from having a unique opportunity, I was, prior to the chief of EMS of operations, I was the chief of EMS training for the fire department, EMS training. And that, you know, we handled over 13,000 certifications, and I ran Proby school, and our Proby classes, you know, would be 180, 200 people at a shot. And I will tell you this, that on the first day when they came, I would spend some time with them, and I would always ask, why are you here? Because, I mean, clearly it's not the money, right? Let's be real about this, right? So why are you here? And so many of them go back to the story of, my father had a heart attack, my grandmother had, you know, a stroke and an ambulance came, or, you know, I saw you treat my friend, or it was always coming down to something personal, something that they witnessed that created this drive in them to end up in EMS themselves, to take on the responsibility of learning how to become an EMT, and then coming and applying for a job at the fire department or any other place. But for me, it was the fire department. So, you know, it was those magical moments, those silent moments of humanity that really caused these folks to want to enter our profession, our industry. And I think it's kind of sad that those moments are just kept for the people who are, you know, having those interactions, and that we're not able to share those kind of stories with the public. I think the public very often still sees us as ambulance drivers. They don't see us in line with other first responders, though we're at every scene of the other first responders. So I think there's a lot of information that we need to get out to the public. And those stories, Robbie, that you're talking about, you know, they need to get out there. And I'm not sure we're doing a great job, you know, publicizing what it is we do. And I've always said this, and I'll just tell it, you know, here it is. So do what you want with it. But, you know, law enforcement and fire, they got 100 years on us. You know, they've been around a whole lot longer than EMS. So people are familiar with them. They're always going to be looked at as heroes. And, you know, when it comes to us, you know, not so much. But when they're in trouble, right, when they're at the worst possible moment on their assignments and they're calling for EMS, that kind of makes us the superheroes, right? We're the unknowns, you know, the heroes are calling for us. And that, to me, we're the superheroes. So, you know, thank you for all of those people who continue to want to be that silent superhero and, you know, have that moment that they're sharing with those folks out there, trying to save their lives or save their well-being. It really is an amazing profession. And I'm just so grateful to be in the presence of so many people that want to do this on a regular basis.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you, Lillian. And I'm excited for people to watch on day number 3. We're going to premiere your talk and your session. There's so many people that have been sending in questions about building that career ladder. And I mean, who better to speak on it than somebody who's led one of the largest departments that by far is the most experience with training, onboarding, and the ability to actually create more structures in an organization. So thank you.
Thanks, Robert.
Well, thank you both.
Mick, do you want any final thoughts here or any stories that come to mind?
Yeah, well, the one thing I wanted to mention about the stories is don't limit yourself to the clinical side of things. I'm reminded of an anecdote, and I think I'm going to botch it up pretty good, but I'll give it my best shot. But I had heard a story about a press group that was touring through Kennedy Space Center. I mean, it's long ago, might have even been, you know, still Cape Canaveral Space Center. But they're walking through the facilities there, and one of the reporters sees this guy in a white clean suit and whatnot, and the reporter asks the person, what's your job here? And he says, well, I'm putting a man on the moon. And come to find out, as the reporter asked a little bit more, he was the janitor, but he had that sense of mission, what he was there for, and how important his job was to the success of the rest of the organization. And we've got all kinds of those stories inside our organizations as well. And so the things that we can do to improve quality, not just in our clinical processes, but innovations we might make with our billing, our fleet maintenance, our materials management, supply chains, et cetera, et cetera. There's an awful lot of improvement opportunities there, and a lot of unsung heroes that support the superheroes, as Lil calls them, that I think we need to celebrate and talk about as well.
Yeah, well said, Mick. Mick Gunderson, thank you for joining us. Lillian Bolson Jr., thank you very much for your participation in this year's summit. I'm excited, Lillian, for them to see your session on day number 3 premiering. Mick, if anybody is interested in quality, you are the go-to guy when it comes to metrics and improvement. Your session will be premiering on day number 4 on April 18th. Thanks again for being here, and we're going to bring on some other of our panel speakers for the kickoff.
See you guys. See you, Lil.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks for being here.
Well, folks, if you haven't already registered, gotten your free pass, the EMSleadershipsummit.com. We've got an incredible amount of speakers, over 40 speakers coming up this week in 30 different sessions. Get your free pass. Every day at 8 a.m., you're going to get an email with a lineup of that day's speaker sessions, and you're going to have an opportunity to watch with a free pass. If you're interested in upgrading to an all-access pass for a small amount, we've got NEMSMA-approved CME credits, lifetime access to all of these sessions in a special portal so we can track and issue certificates. So very good. Lisa, 2 more speakers coming on up?
Yeah, actually, we could probably bring Duncan and Corey and David.
Yes. All right. Well, let's bring on Dr. David Daniels. David, welcome.
We have to acknowledge David.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you're our only 7-time participant as a speaker right? Like everyone else is not on the 7-time list, because we had a small little summit, the little summit that could, which was called the Safety Summit, and David was there too.
Right.
And then we've had 6 of these, and David has been at every one. So
right.
Special
David,
high fives.
Thanks for being an early adopter and being willing to say yes, and for the incredible work you're doing for first responders, for EMS, talking about psychological safety.
Well, the honor's mine. I was kind of thinking while you're talking with some of the other presenters, how much of an honor it is to be one of the OGs and to have been around from the days. And again, I shared the story with a couple of people. We'd never even met before. I'm not even sure how we got connected, but you all reached out and says, "Hey, we're doing this virtual conference thing, and would you be interested?" I go like, "It sounds fun." And I'm certain that there were people who thought you guys both were nuts to even try something like this. And lo and behold, a year later, oh my God, everybody jumped in on the kind of virtual conference, virtual training type thing. But, you two were there, when everybody else thought it was a crazy idea. And I rather enjoy hanging out with folks like you, because a lot of our challenges as a society are going to be solved by folks who thought a little bit differently than everybody else and were willing to take the chance. Everything was impossible until somebody did it. And you've done it. And it's been good to hang out with you for these years.
Well, the honor is ours, and absolutely, we're excited to bring other innovators to be building this platform really for the innovators that are out there from around the world. 2 other innovators I want to bring in right now. We've got Duncan McConnell joining in from Australia, I believe, and we've got and sometimes who knows what country he's going to be in. Welcome, Duncan.
I am in Australia this time.
You are in Australia this time. And
Yep.
Thank you for joining us from the future. And Corey,
Thank you.
Corey, congratulations, your recent retirement from the Fairfax County Fire Rescue Department, an incredibly large fire department-based EMS system. But Corey, I so appreciate you being here, speaking. I remember from the day we met, you embracing curiosity and then being willing to try something new and then being willing to implement it in your department and the difference it made.
Yeah, it made a huge difference. And I mean, you all know, you all coached me for years and kind of saw me grow from little Corey to where I am now. Not that I'm big Corey, but you know what I mean.
Well, you were promoted over and over again, and I remember like every time having a curiosity and a willingness to try something new, to not assume that that your idea is exactly what other people would want. And sure enough, you continue to get promoted, and then we're in charge of a training academy for the entire department. Is that correct?
Yes. Most of it, we have, like you said, a very large department. So I was in charge of EMS training and recruit training, which was a huge portion of it. So, but yeah, started out as a lieutenant and finished as a battalion chief. So it was pretty awesome.
Well, we're excited to have people attend your session this week. And Duncan McConnell, Duncan, you've been doing work in several other countries, Australasia countries, including recently Mongolia, with a great group of people with a pretty innovative, trying to support the EMS system in Mongolia. Curious to hear what's been happening, and now that you're back in Australia, give us maybe the rundown of your presentation and what people can look forward to this week.
So kind of a little bit like Lillian mentioned earlier, sort of looking at ways of creating your own, sort of choose your own adventure within EMS to sort of not just look at clinical, but look at the other options and avenues you might be able to go to as well. Because look, you can always sit in one spot, do nothing, get frustrated, and throw your hands up in the air and go, well, it's all too hard. Or you can look at other options and other opportunities that might present to you as a way of exploring ways of getting either further education or trying something new. And I like Corey's story in that he tried something new and then something else popped up and then something else popped up and the career just kept evolving and evolving. I'm in my 28th year now working as a paramedic in Australia and internationally. And if you'd asked me 28 years ago where I might be sitting or some of the places I'd visited, some of them I wouldn't even be able to have found on a map. So that's sort of what I was sort of touching on with my presentation, was looking at ways on where you can start and where you can sort of go from there, and where the road can sort of take you in that process. And I sort of used some interesting little sort of diagrams this time as sort of tree diagrams. So starting off as a little seedling and then sort of your tree growing up to the point of sort of reaching that level, your pinnacle level within your organization.
That's great, Duncan. And we've got a whole panel actually this week, our international panel on really developing reciprocity and helping people see beyond the lines they've drawn for themselves, how the clinical advancement and the educational advancement has been accelerating in the UK, in Australia, paramedics moving from these different systems to Canada. And it's great to really see this reciprocity and this movement across borders, paramedics across with no borders, actually. And it was a fascinating panel from Leon Baranowski, Jen Bolster. We had some great participation there from the United Kingdom, and it's really fascinating to see the growth and how much easier it's been for paramedics to make that transition.
Especially from where we are now to where we came from, because that transition used to be basically go back and start again, when now there's some recognition, which is awesome.
You mean the way we do it here, right?
I wasn't going to say that out loud. It was going.
Yeah, I did. Okay. Yeah. It's kind of ridiculous, but it's what we do.
Yeah.
And certainly Lindsay McKay, who's the executive director at Ambulance Victoria in Australia, her story of moving from the United Kingdom over 20 years ago and the challenges that she faced, ultimately though, to take almost the top position at Ambulance Victoria, a very large system in Australia. She shared her story, as well as Kirsty Lowry Richardson from the College of Paramedics in the UK. So we're excited to be featuring some international panels, giving people a perspective that gets them out of, I guess, the box that they've inadvertently been placed in, or they may have placed on themselves. David, you could certainly speak to you've seen systems on the West Coast, on the East Coast, and you've consulted for a lot of agencies that have faced some pretty big challenges.
Yeah, I have, and it's really good to just to see folks that are kind of looking over the fence, looking across the pond, looking through their telescope to see where our next opportunity is going to be, because unfortunately, many systems got started by somebody 20, 30, 40, 100 years ago, And the system itself never really changed. People changed, but the system itself is still the same, still has the kind of old ways of doing things. And W. Edwards Deming said that if every system is perfectly designed to produce what it's currently producing. And so if you look at your system and it's not producing what you want, it's probably because it was never really designed that way anyway. And simply switching out people, that's what we kind of tend to do. We'll get a new chief paramedic, a new fire chief, a new police chief, a new doctor, nurse, whatever. And we put them into that same old system that's been around forever. And it worked really well 40 or 50 years ago. It just doesn't work as well now. And ultimately, the people who pay the price are the human beings that are involved, who are really trying to, we all have this sense of kind of internal curiosity about things. And it's these systems that actually kind of lock us down and won't let us do it. So again, I just really exciting to see, what's going on. I've learned a lot of stuff from my friends down under and the ones up north about just these systems. They're a little bit more open and a little less constrained. And, hopefully we can, we all have good things to share if we share it.
And David, you're the host of the Psych Health and Safety podcast, which a company, Flourish DX, based in Australia, but you've got the podcast in the US, so you've certainly got a lot of connections and seen advancements of psychological protection.
Matter of fact, Duncan, maybe we'll get a chance to meet. I'll be down there, in the early part of June, and another conference down there. The world is really very small if we allow it to be. If we, it could be a lot smaller if we just allow it to be smaller and not make it so big. I mean, this isn't we figured out the world's not flat. There's a lot we can share if we decide to.
I just want to add.
Touched,
go ahead, Duncan. No,
I think Lillian touched perfectly on we are sort of our history is quite new. We're still sort of the infant compared to your police, your fire, your nurse, your doctors. And because of that, touching on what you just said, David, in that somehow we will know someone somewhere in the world and connected. It says that it's always very close. Like you say, and I know particularly here in Australia, you can't say something in one state without someone in another state knowing, oh, I know that person. I know all about that. So yeah, we are a very tight knit. We may be young, but we are very tight knit, and we're all connected in some way.
And there isn't an industry that is more adaptable, I think, than EMS and paramedics. Constantly changing, constantly evolving. Throughout the pandemic, things were changing day by day, let alone week by week, and people adapted. And unfortunately, though, there were some people that didn't adapt very well. That the system wasn't designed to support the sheer volume and pressure placed on them. And it's not a moral failing of the individual; it is a failing of the system. That didn't fully support that individual. I want to bring on one more speaker here in the green room, Carmen Theobald. Carmen, welcome.
Before you do that, I know Carmen's here. Just give me 1 second. I just wanted to highlight that we have tomorrow one of our day one speakers. Actually, it's two speakers, Steve Chandler and Trevor Timbeck, and they wrote a book called The Power of Systems. And they speak specifically on the issue of systems and leadership. And it is such a refreshing, in my opinion, approach to leadership to really look beyond not only the systems within your organizations, but the systems of leadership and how to truly, leverage that to bring out the best in people. And I highly recommend given what David said and what Duncan said about systems and you too, Robbie, it is such a wonderful conversation, and I highly recommend the book. I've already read it 2 times. I'm giving it out to people. It's such a tremendous tool to think in a whole different way. So now, Carmen, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Being patient with us, and you're joining, I believe, from Ontario.
That's right, Ontario, Canada.
Great. Well, welcome. Thanks for this is your first time speaking at the EMS Leadership Summit. I think you've got such a great topic as we talk about the psychological stressors of organizations, and maybe you could share a little bit about your work and how you've helped others deal with those psychological stressors. It's such a unique twist.
Yeah, sure. We have a different approach for sure. So I'm the founder and director of Horse Sense North. And we work a lot with different public safety personnel, a lot of EMS, who come to us a lot for trauma recovery, but also for personal growth and wellness. And I do quite a bit of leadership training as well within different organizations, taking some of that horse sense or horse wisdom, if you will, and bringing it into organizations. I think one of the reasons why it was so exciting for me to be part of this summit is because whether we're doing the direct work with clients in their trauma recovery work and in their wellness pieces that they do with us here on site with the horses, or if I'm going into organizations to talk more at like a systems level, I'm hearing the same feedback over and over again, which is that people are really struggling in their workplaces. They're not being supported in their mental health. They are not in cultures that actually value wellness in a way that, of course, makes sense to the job, but it can still make sense for the human. And so, what we see so often here at Horse Sense North in our programming is that people are coming, of course, with various traumas that are connected to actually the work that they're experiencing on site. But the vast majority of the wounding, if you will, is really connected to sanctuary trauma or organizational trauma, where that place that is supposed to be home base, that's supposed to be safe, that's supposed to be protecting, where we're on the same team, that is not happening. And that like death by 1,000 cuts, if you will, is really what ends up pushing people over the edge to go on those stress leaves, to really decide that they can't do this job anymore, or really put their health and their life at risk. And so, the culture, the organizations that are creating or not creating is so important to consider for wellness and mental health for the individual and the group at large.
Absolutely, Carmen. And Dr. Megan McLaren, also a speaker from Canada, was sharing a little bit about the statistics of trauma exposure. It's fascinating. When people watch her presentation, she talks about the average civilian sees experiences three traumatic episodes in a lifetime. And the research is bearing out that first responders and paramedics are seeing over 100 per year. What a staggering statistic. You mentioned the sanctuary trauma, or the maybe the incivility happening in the workplace too, and how are people being supported? David, your work speaks a lot to how people are supported. Are we protecting them both physically and psychologically?
Yeah, I'll be speaking about it's hard to help when the helping hurts. And, again, many of these systems were not built with concern about the human being at the forefront. They were built to get stuff done. Yep. So they were built to make money. They were built we got to take care of sick people. The problem is that I can't take care of another sick person when I'm even sicker than they are. Physically, I look fine, but emotionally, I'm beat to hell. And I've been beat to hell for years. And, and now I'm the chief paramedic. I'm doing the training, and that harm, that trauma is built into everything that we do. I've, been in conversation with some doctors who talk about this ridiculous process. I didn't go to medical school, so I can call it ridiculous. This ridiculous process of the hours and hours and hours you have to spend doing rounds and all that type of thing. I was with the city of Seattle, in the Seattle King County system. Our original paramedic program had an 85% divorce rate. So those things were built into the system, and you can't help but pass that trauma on to other people that you're working with. And I think you're passing on to patients as well.
Certainly are. Feel free, Duncan and Corey, to jump in with any stories you might have when it comes to either organizational traumas or what your organization did, maybe from a resilience perspective, to help shore that up for people.
One thing we tried was pets. So we had dogs that came into the stations, and we had behavioral health section, and they had a dog. And if you had some major trauma, you could call them to come out. And when I was a station captain, I used to do that all the time. I would get them to come out, and, the alpha male mentality, oh, this is dumb, but really they enjoyed it. and it helped them release and stuff like that. But you know, you always had the people, oh, this is crazy, this is dumb, I don't need this. But
while they're petting the dog.
Exactly, that's what I was going to say. They're the first people up to pet the dog. And it's really, it was kind of amazing just to see how that dynamic worked with the interactions with the dogs, and how much of a stress relief that was in general. And it allowed people to kind of be vulnerable, open up, start to talk a little bit. And I think it helped a lot.
We actually had a
dogs. Sorry, go for it.
That's great. I just want to say the first couple years we did this program, we had 2 different speakers with therapy dogs and how they use them in treating trauma with people with EMS. In EMS, sorry. Duncan, go ahead.
It's funny you mentioned the dogs, because with going back to university to teach paramedic students, because all our paramedics are taught university entry to practice over here in Australia. And one thing that I brought in was to do with breaking bad news, because I know starting my career, we were taught how to do that by removing your foot from your mouth. So your partner or your mentor would just throw you in the deep end and get you to break the bad news. And most of the time, you'd make a mess of it, and then you'd have a chat later on. So I created a scenario where there was an old couple. One of them passed away in their sleep. They had a little dog. And I'd trained my Jack Russell to respond to commands and other things like that. So the students had to come in, break the bad news to the husband that his wife of 50 plus years had passed away. And they also had to manage the dog, because little dogs like to get in everywhere. And then at the end, they also had to contact a relative, which was another lecturer that was on the end of the phone. And how they responded to that lecturer depended on how the lecturer responded back to them. And then we'd have a big debrief at the end of it. And the dog actually went from being the star of the show and just getting in the way, as little dogs do, especially when you put food everywhere to harass them, to sort of comforting the students, because some of them broke down. Some of them just couldn't handle being spoken back to if they said the wrong thing. And some of them, they'd never sort of experienced anything like that. And the dog, in that sense, worked a treat in both being part of the scenario as well as them being almost like the therapy dog process at the end of it. But yeah, I love having dogs and animals in the workplace. It's even the hardest alpha males, like you said, Corey, they're like big stony face, like, look at me, I am man, hear me roar, to, oh, look at this cute little puppy. Yeah.
Hi there, baby.
Yeah, exactly. Where did that voice come from? I don't know.
Yes, exactly.
It is fascinating to see other models emerging, peer support models that are also embracing animals and rescue animals and trained therapy dogs. So they're taking kind of multiple approaches at the issue. Dr. Megan McLaren also talks about her research-based methods for before operational stress, preparing people before they're exposed to these traumas, so that they are naturally more resilient and not, after the fact, trying to clean up the mess. Peter Antevi has been a great advocate of this, where his fire department-based EMS system actually embraced therapists and embedded them into the teams before there was a major incident. They could be part of a response. And then the Parkland school shooting happened. And that system was in place where those people had immediate support on the scene, which wouldn't have happened otherwise. So it's fantastic to be able to learn from all of our different speakers and bring in multiple methods, because Carmen, I'm sure you could speak to this. Like there isn't just one silver bullet to this issue.
That's for sure. And you're also mentioning, all these wonderful preventative pieces. And I'm thinking about Wendy Lund, who I know you've had on this summit before, a good friend of mine. And she does all these kinds of different things to bolster resilience for people as well. And there's so many tools that can help with that. But I think the big piece that I also want to mention is that humans, we are built to be resilient. Yes, there are skills that we can develop to help that. We can have integrated systems to help with prevention. But I think a big problem is that often resilience is weaponized. Often that is actually part of the problem, where it's like, well, why is the individual not more resilient? How can we make the individual more resilient? But I think the bigger piece is, how can we get the leaders in the systems to be more courageous, to bring the dog in, to do things that are maybe research-based, maybe not, but that's what the person's asking for their wellness. EMS, and there's just more research to be done, so it's like, can we start to believe people? Can we start to listen to what people actually need? And as a whole culture and system, can we really give more space for a courageous change to do the things that we really need to do so that the resilience we do have is honored and not weaponized?
That's so well said.
Thank you, Carmen.
And just have to say, I think that shift in paradigm from there's something wrong if you show emotion or you feel something, right? Like, I know when I came up, when I was in Child Protective Services as a child abuse investigator, it was all about walls and, just being tough and not at all letting anything show, right? Never let them see you sweat was the motto. And we didn't know that's what was killing us, right? It was that way of thinking. That was actually the wrong approach. And it was when we shifted to actually having space for ourselves and our own emotions and allowing space for the emotions of the people we were serving that we all naturally got healthier, naturally we're more resilient because resilient is built in.
Well, thank you to our panel for being here. Carmen, your session premieres on day number 2. So that's going to be on April 16th. So be sure to check out Leading Change with Courage, Grace, and Horsepower. Great leadership topic. I love that you're weaving those stories together. Corey, your session is going to be on day number 5, Breaking Traditions, Overcoming EMS Culture Barriers to Recruitment. And I know recruitment is usually a huge hot button issue for people. So I want to thank you for being here in our kickoff, for returning again. Duncan, you're also going to be with Corey on day number 5 on April 19th on Saturday here, premiering at 8 a.m. Duncan, yours is on career advancement and pathways. What direction are you going? And last but not least, David, your session is going to be, anybody help
Wednesday, I think.
There we go. Day number 2. Great to have you on the lineup. It's hard to help when the helping hurts. Your embracing of both physical safety, psychological safety is always inspiring, and you've always got it backed by research. And I'm sure you're going to share a little bit from your book that's just coming out as well. There we go. Put it up again. Psychological hazards are real with Dr. David Daniels. Excellent. Drawing from your experience in both emergency service and fire and EMS and so many other systems through not only out the United States, but your experience in interviewing people in the Psych Health and Safety podcast.
Absolutely.
All right, folks. Carmen, Corey, Duncan, thanks for joining in. Dr. David Daniels, thanks for being here. As always, we appreciate you.
And we hope to see you on the daily debriefs. So
I'll be there. Wouldn't miss it for the world.
All right.
Awesome.
Be there as well.
Awesome.
Take care.
All right, Lisa.
We have a couple other things to cover.
Absolutely. That was everyone. That was our speakers. We want to thank them for doing such a great job. We've got a lot of sessions this week and a lot to cover here. So
yeah, let's talk a little bit about the daily debriefs. I know I mentioned them quickly, but just for people, we will be streaming every day of the summit, Tuesday through Saturday, the 15th through the 19th, from 6 to 7 Eastern at least. And that will be time for us to speak with the presenters from that day, and they're willing to take questions. So we have some questions people have emailed us, and we'll also take live questions from people who are watching the live stream. And so, we invite all the speakers from that day to come. And frankly, it is so much fun, like tonight has been, but it's also, like a whole workshop in and of itself, because you have 3 or 4 or 5 experts talking about a topic and new ideas come out. The next thing we should talk about is our virtual exhibit hall, which I have to so acknowledge you and your team for putting these together. There is no other virtual exhibit hall like ours and what you have put together. So if you want to walk people through that.
Absolutely. Folks can visit emsleadershipsummit.com/exhibit, where we've featured not only just a logo on a webpage, we've included custom built exhibit hall booths for our sponsors. you can visit this. And actually, this year is the first year we've got 2 lunch and learn. So lunch is on us and our sponsors. If you want to join us, we have Image Trend, who will be on Friday, April 18th at 1 p.m. Eastern. And for the first 100 people who register and attend live, 1 p.m. Eastern, we are going to provide a $15 lunch Grubhub voucher here in the US. So you can redeem that if you register and attend the Image Trend Lunch and Learn, as well as our second Lunch and Learn actually will be on Thursday, April 17th with Revenue EMS and Isaac Sobel. Fantastic speaker talking about how do you there is money people are leaving on the table that they can get from insurance companies. Most agencies have just written off this money of underpayments. And I think his statistic was, and I should have written this down, but in the last 5 months, he's helped recover over $7 million for ambulance services. So he's got such a heart for EMS. He worked in a very large system in New York City and as a financial person, and he has been on a mission to help ambulance services recover every penny they can from insurance companies, because really we know every penny does matter. We have our returning sponsors at Ninth Brain. We love those folks. Always coming up with new innovative solutions here. So if you click on through, you can watch a little demo video about an all-in-one solution for workforce scheduling, to their quality assurance, learning management system. And you can chat with Bradley Hughes if you are interested in more information, would like a demo. But they've got some great testimonials here, some videos. So be sure to check out our friends at Ninth Brain, as well as our friends at Phase, the patient handling and safety experts, just premiering a brand new product, as if the Bender lift wasn't fantastic enough to put handles on humans and really never have to reach under somebody's armpits again. If that's not a selling point, I don't know what is, but they've got the Bender transfer device that actually gets mounted to a stretcher, and they've got the most adorable product video here of, I think, his nephews sliding a patient over on a stretcher with this Bender lift transfer device. Just think of all of the movement injuries and back injuries we've seen throughout the years, and that they can really help with eliminating the chances of somebody having a catastrophic back injury and having that cumulative stress over the years. One of the I love about Bender Lift and the Phase company and Bender Lift and the Bender Transfer, they offer a free field trial. So you really don't understand the power of it until you actually have get your hands on it. Let your crews have a chance to get their hands on it, and they will never lift and move patients the same again.
And also, Rick is going to be doing a presentation for us this year. He has a terrific presentation that he's offering on this very issue.
Yes, April 17th, a professional pickup artist, a guide to safe patient handling. So we love that topic, and Rick is certainly passionate about reducing injuries from both to providers and the risk of injuries to patients. So other sponsors in our booth and partners, we have EMS One, who's been just a fantastic supporter of the EMS Leadership Academy and the Summit. We so appreciate EMS One and Lexipol, as well as NAMI HP, National Association of Mobile Integrated Health Providers. NAMI HP is a really progressive organization with some of the most cutting edge organizations trying to do the best for their communities in community paramedicine and mobile integrated health. We talked about the Lunch and Learn by Image Trend, but Image Trend has also put a booth together with some pretty fantastic explanations and case studies of how their agencies are leveraging their Image Trend Elite platform and their community health platform, and some case studies of what other organizations are doing to support leveraging data, leveraging this information and visualizing the information in their different products. So if you are interested in the Lunch and Learn, be sure to check that out and register. They are providing lunch that day. And if you want a demo of the Image Trend platform, be sure to follow up here and they will schedule a demo for you. So encourage folks to check out the Image Trend booth. And Thank you to Martin at Fire Rescue TV. Martin is such an innovative product. Right now, we are live streaming across over 400 fire and EMS stations, thanks to Martin and the Fire Rescue TV network. Over 100,000 followers, 120,000 followers on Facebook. And we have taken over his page with his permission to present this week's EMS Leadership Summit, our daily debriefs. So if you're interested in digital signage for your stations, including continuing education and messaging, there's some great videos and resources. Be sure to follow up with Martin this week, and he will get you set up with some more information.
What I love about all of our booths, they all have information, that is helpful and valuable. Just like if you were going to an in-person conference, you'd walk through the booths and pick up information. Same thing here, except you don't have to fly anywhere or park anywhere or any of those.
Even better, no expensive travel, no gross travel, no flights getting canceled. I want to reach out. I want to thank our NEMSMA, the National EMS Management Association, for approving our credits. So if folks have upgraded to an all access pass at emsleadershipsummit.com/AAP for all access pass, you can get lifetime access to all the 30 plus sessions, 40 speakers this week, including NEMSMA approved CME credits, audios. And if you're interested at all in developing a professional credential, NEMSMA is certainly the organization that's been on the leading edge here in the United States to help organizations with that. Now, next up, I want to talk a little bit about our resuscitation booth. So we have both the Resuscitation Academy, the Citizen CPR Foundation, and a little preview from the this week. What we're adding to the booth is the documentary 6 Minutes to Live. So we've got Hillary, Tom, and we've got Bob Davis. Bob Davis premiered with USA Today as a reporter and paramedic the staggering numbers of resuscitation, the low numbers of resuscitation. So really, their stories are just fascinatingly woven at 6minutestolive.com. And this session will premiere. They've already premiered it, but we're going to feature a short video documentary that's actually 12 minutes long from 6 Minutes to Live, including a panel discussion with Hillary Gates, Bob Davis, and Tom Boothole, all three great advocates for resuscitation and improving survival numbers in your local community. And Lisa, it gave me so much energy to talk with them, to hear their stories, and how there were people that didn't have to die, and there were people that did survive because people were willing to step up. Bystanders were trained. The chain of survival was strengthened. And what they've done with this short film documentary could get anyone excited about what our leaders and our communities can do to improve resuscitation, to have people walk out of the hospital, to not just be at or below the 9% survival rate for sudden cardiac arrest. So really excited to kind of intertwine all of these resources from Resuscitation Academy, Citizen CPR Foundation, and now with this short documentary that came out over 20 years later after this article from the USA Today, and to hear how far DC Fire and EMS has come, how far these systems have come because they've focused on improving a system, and they really weren't stopped by excuses.
And one thing I love about it, and I know that the most important part is to improve outcomes, no doubt about that, and that's the focus. But the other opportunity in it is to really rally around it, to build your leadership capacity by being on the forefront of something like this kind of a project or this kind of an initiative. And then people want to be a part of something this great, right? Like, oh my God, what a difference you get to make in your community when you see the survival rates going up and all of the cool things that can happen. So I just think that it's such an important leadership lesson when you hear from this panel and you see what they are doing. It just, to me, it was inspiring on so many levels. And I just think it's something that if communities or leaders take it on in EMS, that so many things will get solved by I don't know, on the way. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like,
People want to be part of something great. They want to be part of
yes,
excellence. So they want to be part of innovation and knowing that they can make a big difference, and they can. And when a whole system gets behind that bigger vision and that bigger picture, the pettiness starts to fall to the wayside. And Lisa,
yeah,
you and I, we talk about this all the time at the EMS Leadership Academy. It's the one booth in the exhibit we haven't talked about. So head on over
it's us.
to the EMS Leadership Academy's booth here as we talk about innovative ways to create a new vision of the future for your organization. Lisa and I are going to be leveraging the power of our virtual studio that Lisa's in right now. And we can bring people in live to have a live training experience. We've done this before. We've helped them reinvent themselves as a leader. We've helped them create a new vision for themselves, for their organization, and really begin to create change, not by trying to change other people, but really by changing how they see themselves and helping people take the blinders off. So if you're at all interested, we've got a 2-day training that we've developed from our video production studio that will give people a front row seat experience in a transformational change. That's what our session is this week. Actually, we just
Thursday.
finished up. We just finished up recording that and getting the last bit of edits in. Our session was, I think, the last one. Get everyone else's session polished, and we're really excited to premiere our session this week and make sure folks get a little taste of what transformational change is all about. So Thursday on day number 4, April 18th, a new approach to a chronic problem. And a little bit of a teaser, that chronic problem is the recruitment and retention cycle. We've taken the latest numbers from the American Ambulance Association's Newton 360 survey, more than double in 1 year the cost of turnover of one person, $22,000 to train and onboard one person. That number is more than twice what it was last year. And we're going to give people a formula, a few different formulas, simple formulas to calculate the cost of turnover in their organization, how much those organizations are just hemorrhaging money. And our invitation is to take a look at the blueprint and the model for change that we've developed.
Yeah, and you'll get a real taste of the work that we do, but more importantly, you'll have takeaways right from that presentation. So we've designed it so you get value from coming to that very event. So stay tuned for our new training that we're premiering on Thursday our presentation for this is a brand new training. So I think we covered everything. The only other thing I will say is if you're registered and you have any questions, any challenges, anything at all from your participation this week, just email support at emsleadershipacademy.com. Okay, so it's support at emsleadershipacademy.com. And someone from our team will be happy to help you with any of the challenges you might have, if any technical difficulties, anything like that.
Lisa, we should go over what people can expect tomorrow. Day number 1 speakers, Chief of EMS, City of Pittsburgh, Amara Gilchrist. She did such an excellent job talking about reimagining EMS. I loved your interview with her and her presentation, and talking about how they made some drastic changes in a short amount of time, less than 18 months. And now they've got an abundance of people for their schedule, which is a great problem to have. And she used the term overstaffed at this point to where they can run an advanced EMT academy, and they are resolving their recruitment and retention challenges. So shout out to her for her excellent presentation from the Chief of EMS for the City of Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and then as I mentioned before, the power of systems from command and control to inspire and enroll. Steve Chandler is very near and dear to my heart. He was a coach of mine for many, many years. Trevor Timbeck is a incredible leader and incredible coach of leaders. So the two of them, as a personal favor to me, this came on and did a presentation, and all I can say is it's a transformational opportunity. So if you think systems are boring, or you think, blah, 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 no, it is so powerful. You will want to watch that one over and over again.
Next
then
up
our
is
buddy.
Scott Moore. We love Scott Moore, and he keeps coming back with some great innovative presentations. Not only is he an attorney, he was in EMS operations, so he knows firsthand what it's like to be a leader. And I love his engaging presentations. He is also a supporter and part of the source of the Newton 360 American Ambulance Association's annual turnover study. So he knows the turnover and the cost of turnover numbers very intimately and talks about that. So we so appreciate Scott for talking about leading an EMS without sacrificing yourself.
Yeah, and then Ray is in the house. I got the opportunity this year to interview him. It was really incredible. You know, again, I told him this and I'll say it again. I've been in the field doing leadership training and all of that for so long. And yet I walked away with so much more from talking to him about the distinction between leadership and management and how you really need to be able to navigate the differences, know when you're leading and know when you're managing. They're not the same thing. And he just has such a clarity about expressing that. So I'm looking forward to hearing from people what they walked away with that.
Absolutely. And Ray's got so many funny, engaging stories. Such a humble leader. All of our leaders are just so energetic and unique. And another energetic and unique speaker that you had a chance to meet if you were watching our beginning of our kickoff is Dr. Victoria Reinhardt, who's the executive director of NAMI HP, and her dedication to the world of community paramedicine in training and education. She's such an innovative and eloquent speaker. We love to. I had a great interview with Victoria, and really talking about what are those small 1% improvement changes that can really set you on a new trajectory for yourself and for your organization. And talking about burning the 10-year plan, is some people have plans that they're just so held firm on and won't deviate from. And Victoria says we need to learn to be more nimble and embrace those things that might come our way, because there's opportunity in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that 1% better is such an important distinction. You know, we used to always say, you and I, you know, how do you eat an elephant, right? You can't eat it all at once. But I love the distinction of 1%, because 1% better every day, you're 100% better in 100 days.
Yeah.
That's not forever, right? Like, you just have your eye on that 1% better. It's an amazing compound effect.
Absolutely is. And last but not least, on the day one lineup is Nick Carson from Mind the Front Line. He's a volunteer with Mind the Front Line as a critical care and flight paramedic. Shares his stories and some other great stories about the new rules for leadership, and that both the challenges that organizations and workforces are facing, as well as some evidence-based strategies to help recruit and retain people. And Mind the Front Line is a great organization, a nonprofit with President Chris Mattina talking about really advocating for our first responders and their own mental health and their mental well-being. So I want to thank Mind the Front Line and Nick Carson for putting a session together for day number one. So pretty power-packed session.
That's just day one.
Folks,
like blows my mind.
What I'm scrolling through is our EMS Leadership Playbook. We just heard from Carmen on day number 2. We've got a great panel here. You see Eric Chase there, Chuck Blankenship, William Bonsignor. So many speakers that I don't want to forget anyone, but you can certainly check out the full playbook at emsleadershipsummit.com/playbook to download your EMS Leadership Playbook and schedule for all 5 days of sessions. So Lisa, I think that wraps it up. We so appreciate everyone coming out tonight. This was a huge lineup of speakers. I wish we could have gotten to spend so much more time with each one of them. But every day of our summit, starting tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern, we're going to record a daily debrief of just those 6 speakers from day number 1.
Absolutely. And it'll give us a chance to really dive a little bit deeper, but also answer any questions that folks have. So please be sure to join us. You'll be able to ask questions through the comments on any of the places that we're live streaming. We also have some questions that folks have emailed in prior to the event. So we'll be also looking to answer those as well. Can't thank you enough, Robbie. You're the one who made this whole thing happen 7 years ago when you first enrolled me in the idea of an online summit. I was like, all right. Must have been. Say that again.
I said, I so appreciate that. That's what I love about you. You know, you're always willing to at least try it out and hear some crazy idea out. And we'll have reached over 20,000 people from 44 different countries here in the last 6 years. So Lisa, thanks for being, you know, chief innovator and supporter that you are. And folks, I'm excited. I hope you're excited too. If you haven't already signed up for your free pass, emsleadershipsummit.com. Make sure you're in for this whole week, and we will be seeing you real soon.
And if you're, one last thing I want to say is if you're signed up, you will get an email at 8 a.m. tomorrow with all the information on how to access the sessions. But as Robbie said before, you can just go right to booth number 1. It'll be live at 8 a.m. tomorrow. If you have an all access pass, all the sessions are already uploaded. So
already up there. You've already got access.
Get a start on them right now. So that you can still go to booth 1 and just go to all access pass holder at the bottom, the red box, and you can access all the sessions already. All right. I am so excited. I can't wait for tomorrow night, and we'll see you all.
We'll see you later, everyone.